Ever have a boss set a deadline that you knew was arbitrary? Well, did you take it seriously? Maybe not, right? So stop the scroll because I'm going to talk to you about 3 ways that you can set timelines rather than deadlines so you'll take it seriously. So I'm going to talk to you about how you can set up and plan your sprints every single time so that you aren't setting arbitrary deadlines, because we never ever take deadlines seriously if they are not based on something, right? And one of the things that makes a true deadline is there's some sort of consequence, like there's a fine, or you're going to get fired or something like that, right? And although we may have, as a business owner, we may have true consequences, like, for example, not making the money we could be making because we didn't make that deadline. There's a gap between the time that you set a deadline and then the missed deadline. So you don't want to lose that money, right? So instead, what we're going to do is set timelines, okay? And those timelines, it's not arbitrary, it's based on 3 things. The very first thing is you want to look at all the things that you currently have planned for your week and estimate how long everything is going to take. Now, here's the rule of thumb for estimating. If it's going to take longer than an hour or shorter than an hour, just start with that. That will help you estimate. And probably you'll know, right? You'll know if it's going to take longer than an hour. If it is, then is it going to take longer than 2? Is it going to take longer than 3 or 4? If it's going to take longer than 4 hours, I highly recommend breaking it down into smaller and smaller tasks. And if you can't estimate, if you don't know how long something's going to take, keep breaking it down into smaller and smaller tasks. Because, for example, you might have something like maybe you're building your website for the first time, you need to learn, right? So instead of just lumping that all together in one task, separate that task into taking the training that you need to take so you learn the software, and then research time, and then stumbling block time. So have some of that built into your estimate. And so I like to look at, usually when I look at estimates, I round up, right? So if I think it's going to take 3 or 4 hours, then I'm probably going to round up to the 4. And that way I don't overbook my sprints, because that is more frustrating, right? It's easier to pull more tasks in if you get stuff done early than it is to have to drag your tasks from one sprint to another, because that can become very discouraging. And so go ahead and do your estimates. And the other thing too is, when you're estimating, look to see if anything is under 1 hour, then is it 15 minutes only? Is it 30 minutes? If it's 15 minutes and you have several of those 15-minute tasks, those are great to group together, not necessarily in one card on your Kanban board or one sticky note or whatever, but to group together in terms of like let's say you're working on a tough project, you get to a stopping point or a stuck point, or you're waiting on somebody else for something, and now you have a little bit of free time and you don't really want to start anything else. Those 15-minute tasks are great to just use those small pockets of time so that you can, get something done quickly and knock it off of your list and get that quick win. So make sure you're labeling everything that takes only 15 minutes, like highlight it in pink or something like that, so because you won't even believe how many times you can leverage a small pocket of time you have and knock something off your list for the week. Taking advantage of those small pockets of time can really add up. If you did that 4 times a week, that's a whole hour of extra work where you might have just been surfing the internet or not working at all, just doing something else. And so that will help you to really start estimating everything. And remember, if you can't estimate it, break it down until you can, right? Because everything you should be able to determine if it's longer than an hour or shorter than an hour, okay? Okay, the next step is to do your time blocks now, because now that we know how long things are going to take, we need to know how much time we have in our week to actually put in the work to get these tasks done. Because if you're working on a Kanban board, you're probably not necessarily, you know, putting a sticky note or a card on your Kanban board for your appointments and your client appointments, things like that. And so you don't want to overlook those. So you need to now look at your schedule and see when you're going to have that time. And if you've done my Take Charge of Your Time, I have a free workbook you can grab. It's at thescrumshop.com/time. If you've taken that little mini course, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say do your time blocks, because that is really one of the first steps you want to do when you plan, is do those time blocks, know what the quantity of time you have and the quality of that time. And I'm talking each time block, because you might have a green time block that you need to utilize to write a blog post or record a video or something like that, where you can't have interruptions. And then you might have a bunch of yellow time blocks that you can leverage to do things like creating images for social media or doing those little 15-minute tasks, right? Something that doesn't take high levels of concentration. It's just something you got to get done, right? So do those time blocks after you've done your estimates or before. It's okay, either way. But here's the thing, the next step is prioritizing. So you don't want to prioritize all those tasks that you have and have estimated until you know what your schedule is and how much time you actually have. Because the way we prioritize in Scrum, we prioritize by must have, should have, could have, and won't have at this time. So if you find out that you don't have enough time during this week to do a particular task, then that one's going to become a won't have at this time, right? And so that's how you're going to prioritize. You're going to be able to look at your time blocks, see how much time you have available, and then look at the things that are the most important. What are the things that are like the non-negotiables, the must-haves? You have to have them or you can't move forward. Those are the things that you want to get done first. Then those should-haves, then those could-haves. And some of those could-haves may become won't-haves at this time, but you don't want the must-haves to become won't have at this time, right? Because those are the things you have to have. So don't do that. Okay, so that's how you can actually start setting a timeline now. So now that you have estimates done, you've done your time blocks, you know what your when you can work and what the quality of that time is, and you're prioritizing everything. Now you can start looking at, okay, if I'm working on a project and that's only part of my day, like the rest of the time I'm doing my day-to-day work, meeting with clients, whatever else you're doing during the day, you're not only focused on a project. Now you can start setting a timeline for that project, because now you may realize, well, geez, I only have 3 or 4 hours a week to work on my project. I don't have 10, 20 hours a week, and this thing's going to take me 20, maybe even 30, maybe 60 hours to complete, right? So that's how you can start creating that timeline, and then looking at your sprints, and then look at sprints and say, okay, how many sprints is that going to take me if I only have this amount of time and I need 20 hours to do this project? I only have 4 hours, so it's going to take me 5 weeks. That's 2.5 sprints. And so then you're like, okay, that's going to take me 3 sprints to do. So I'm going to spread it out over that. But you can see the beauty of this way of working, especially in sprints, is because you're not dealing with deadlines coming up every day. You don't have that deadline every day. It's like, okay, we've got this block of work, and by the end of the sprint, we want to have everything done and ready. And that's it. So it leaves you the freedom to mix and match your task based on how you're feeling that day, what you're working on, what you're doing, what your day is like, all those things, all those factors that come in. Maybe you're not feeling good. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you can't focus that day. So that's not the day to do that real deep work, right? It's a day to maybe just bang out some of those tasks that you have. You can see now how managing your project is a lot different than managing your day-to-day tasks, right? And so it's often a really good idea to separate your projects from your day-to-day work, right? So just have a Kanban board for your project and track it separately. And the beauty of that is that then you can repeat that project over and over and over again, just with a different topic, right? Let's say you're making a sales page for a course you're offering or something, and you're going to be creating sales pages a lot. You can actually systematize that and create a Kanban board for that particular thing. You may not need a Kanban board for that, but you get my point. Like, you get my point, is that Some projects you're going to have a real big thing, right? Like your whole entire course is the project. And that includes creation of the course, the curriculum, the membership site, the sales page, the thank you page, the email campaigns, the email promotions, the social media promotions. It's a whole entire campaign, right? It's a whole package. And so if you look at your things in terms of packages, that's going to help you to create Kanban boards for those projects that you can repeat. And then you can just use it for a different topic. Now you have it basically templated out and you can use it for all your courses, especially if you're doing like mini offers, micro offers, that sort of thing, to keep that revenue rolling in. Okay, so I hope that that helps. So if you are struggling with setting deadlines and you're not setting timelines, and those deadlines are not happening because you're not taking it seriously, then it's time to get serious about planning. And you can learn more about Scrum if you go to my Take Charge of Your Time. You can start there. That's the first lesson in the Take Charge of Your Biz bundle. And it is at scrumshop.com/time. You can grab it there for free, get that first lesson, see what you think, and then you might want to dive more into Scrum because it is a really great way for you to keep overwhelm at bay, set timelines instead of deadlines, estimate your work so you're not cramming at the end, and prioritize your work in a better way so that you can come up with a complete product at the end of your sprint that you can publish, you can get it out there, you can try it out, get some feedback, all that stuff, because we're taking imperfect action all the time and we're getting it out there and testing it, getting out there and testing it and improving on it, adding features, all that stuff. Just like the iPhone, right? The iPhone 14 didn't start at 14, it started at 1. That's how it started. That's how your business is starting too. Okay. All right, you guys, I hope that that helps. And let me know in the comments what you think and what you think about deadlines, because I know for me, I always hated that when I was in IT. I hated when our bosses would set these deadlines because they were getting political pressure over something and they didn't plan ahead. And now all of a sudden it's our emergency because they didn't plan ahead. Right? And so there is no real consequence except maybe they're going to be in trouble, but we're not. I guess we could be, but you can see how you don't take deadlines seriously that are arbitrary. And as a business owner, it's up to you to create the structure in your own business, right? And that structure is going to support your success. So get in there, give it a try, do your estimates, do your time blocks, and then prioritize last, and then create a timeline. And that helps you set your estimated time of completion, right? Your estimated time of completion. Okay. All right, guys. I hope that helps. Take care, and I will see you in the comments.